Hello to you all again. It's Al here from MBX, Mind Body Extra. Today I speak of the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is hard to actually define. It's hard to describe. So I've taken a few notes here so that we can get a bit of a handle on actually what is the sweet spot, so that we can actually start to apply the sweet spot. So my notes say the sweet spot, what is it? The sweet spot, it's when there's a movement to a contact point of another movement, from another movement, that brings a collision of those two movements into a feeling of synchronicity and a feeling of ease and effortless effort. And that's my description. I played many years of tennis at a very high level. I was a professional player and then coached, and there was always these days, when I was experiencing the sweet spot, and trying to define it is very, very difficult, but that's the best I can come up with. I tried to Google this sweet spot and I couldn't really come up with a description. So if that one's okay for you, I'll read it out again for you. This is what it actually is. Once again, it's when there's a movement to a contact point of another movement that brings a collision of those two movements into a feeling of synchronicity and a feeling of ease and effortless effort. And I can vouch for that. It really is effortless effort. The sweet spot is experienced very often in ball sports such as tennis and golf and such like, but equally, can be experienced in life. This is why we really need to experience the sweet spot, so we can apply it to life. We can't play tennis all day. We can't play golf all day, although a lot of us like to, but we need to apply the sweet spot to life. I go on further here to say the grip on the racket on the racket or the club needed to be just right. And do you know what? I can remember this intimately. It needed to be just right, and it's the same as the grip of life. If there was too much tension on the grip, you'd have too much tension on one side of this movement of energy and not enough on the other, so the sweet spot was gone. So as in life, we need to experience the sweet spot just like that. If we do have the right grip on life, we actually have the opposing forces meeting and merging, and that's what I can best describe as the feeling for life. It flows right through you, the sweet spot, and it's evident with breathing. I say this a lot to you. It's evident with our breathing. The in-breath, which we don't give much attention to. The out-breath, we don't give much attention to, although I've got to tell you a bit more than the in-breath. And then there's a little bit of a collision there between the in-breath and out-breath that creates what we can call the sweet spot of breathing. So there's an in-breath. Take a couple. There's an in-breath. And there's an out-breath. And there's something else there. There's an in and there's an out. There's a little space between the in-breath and out-breath, which can be likened to the sweet spot I experienced and many people experience when they're hitting a tennis ball or hitting the golf ball. There's a little tiny space there, which is the sweet spot of breathing. If there was no space there, there'd be no sweet spot. So we'll practice this briefly. Take a long, deep in-breath. We'll do a few. And the next one. And the next one. That's the in-breath that we're pretty used to taking. If we don't have an in-breath, we're not here talking. So there's a lot to be said for breathing, isn't there? Let's look at the out-breath now. And you'll notice on the out-breath, it's a letting go type of sensation. Quite different to the in-breath. Right, now bring your attention to the little space between the in-breath and out-breath, and you'll experience what we're calling today the sweet spot. The in-breath and the out-breath are reliant on that sweet spot, are reliant on that space. So when the ball hits the racket or when the ball hits the club, there's this collision happening. It's just the same as the breath there, where one is absorbing the other. And that's what the sweet spot of breathing is doing as well. So that's after the in-breath and out-breath. Now what about the out-breath, in-breath? So let's have a look and see if that's the same. There's the in-breath. There's the out-breath. And then there's the sweet spot. You'll notice they're a little bit different. That's okay. We've got a sweet spot after in-breath, pause, out-breath, a little space, and we've got the same on the other side of the breathing cycle. So we're trying to experience the sweet spot for life. Okay, so we're going to actually do a little bit of that before we finish up today. So experience the sweet spot between the in-breath and out-breath. Experience the sweet spot then between the out-breath and in-breath. Just give it a close inquiry and see if they're similar. One is absorbing the other, just as when we hit the tennis ball or we hit the golf ball. It's absorbed by the sweet spot and it feels ecstatic. It feels really joyful. That's what life's meant to be like, joyful. If we get to the sweet spot of life, it will be joyful at all times. Okay, so let's do this again. Take an in-breath. Then there's a little space where the sweet spot is before the out-breath. It's always there. We cart it around everywhere with us, and yet we're looking for the sweet spot of life all over the place, not realising it's going with us everywhere. So in a moment we're going to do some practices of this. So I want you to do a minute now of finding the sweet spot. Just a minute, I'll time you. The sweet spot between the in-breath and out-breath. Don't veer off. Keep your attention just the sweet spot of the breathing cycle. You'll find that it's effortless once you go there. There's not much action happening. It is a very sweet place to be. Now have a close look at what happens between the out-breath and the next in-breath. And you may notice, because of the sweet spot and because of the relaxation response that it creates, suddenly your neck and shoulders feel a bit better somehow. They don't feel quite as tense. People who are experiencing neck and shoulder problems, if they go to the sweet spot, sometimes it releases the tension just because of the sweet spot. And we'll try another one. This time I want you to have a negative memory. I'm just checking my little things that I've set here for you. We'll have a negative memory. It's quite easy to remember a negative memory. Remember a negative memory, and you'll notice that the sweet spot will change after this. So have a negative memory. Now bring your attention to the little sweet spot between the in and out. Sometimes it's not even there. But the more you give attention to the sweet spot, energy flows where attention goes. The more you give attention to the sweet spot, the negative memory goes. Try again. Very good. So the negative memory is being absorbed now by that sweet spot. It's nullifying it. Don't let the negative memory impact your body, because we'll have a lot of problems. Just stay very closely with that now. The little sweet spot which is evident all the time. I saw someone write this there. This is so effective, Alan. Of course it's effective because it's mobile. You know what? It goes everywhere with you. Nothing can impact you if you go to your sweet spot. Okay, we'll try another one now. What about having the sweet spot after a positive imagination? Imagine something quite positive. Let's see what the sweet spot does. Something quite positive. Good. Now have a close inquiry of the sweet spot after something positive. You'll notice it's a little bit different. Now bring more attention. Remember, energy flows where attention goes. Bring more attention to the sweet spot and you'll find that the imagination goes. How powerful is this? Because mostly we don't have positive imaginations. We have negative imaginations. Bring your attention to the sweet spot and all of the life's woes, they all start to dissolve. Let's practice this now together for 1 minute. I'll put my timer on. Let's practice this now for 1 minute. The sweet spot between the in-breath and the sweet spot between the out-breath. I just had a message there from Olivia. You're right, Olivia. It enhances the positive imagination. It's so near to you at all times, the sweet spot of life. Isn't it so easy? Well, I think it is. I'd rather be in the sweet spot than in the hot spot of life. And then if we go to the hot spot of life, the chaotic part of life, and we actually go to the sweet spot, it's no longer chaotic. We can go anywhere. We're always looking to be able to do these things in quietude. But you know what? Life's not quietude. Life's chaos too. If we're only looking for quietude in life, we're missing half of life or more. So by doing these little simple procedures week by week, we start to be able to go into the totality of life, which is what I want us all to do. Those that follow me weekly or the members of ours, we want you to go into the totality of life so that you don't miss any of life. Who said that that's better than this or that's not as good as that? That's just an opinion. Life is full of all these contradictions, and we should be able to be in the sweet spot between all of them so we can actually enjoy life. If we don't have negative, we can't know what positive is. And if we don't have positive, we can't know what negative is. We've got the polarities at all time. The sweet spot puts us in the middle of the whole lot. Life is to be experienced. Now that's about all I've got time for today. Once again, they go quickly, these sessions. But next week I'll remind you that we have a session on the 8th of June at the same time, 11:20 till about 11:30 or 11:35, depending on how we're going. We'll have a brief talk on time. Time is a very controversial subject. I love talking about time. The timing is just right, isn't it? Because people are rushed for time, particularly nowadays. It's getting more and more like that. So next week we can talk about time. The following week, this is actually creating quite a lot of interest, and it must be because there's a lot of it out there. This is my program, BLIP, Baseline Internal Program, and I'm applying that applied meditation model to weight reduction. It's a truly remarkable way to use the mind power that we've all got to reduce our weight, and sometimes, just sometimes, without all the other obvious things like diet, nutrition and movement, exercise, etc. I have had examples of people reducing their weight with mind power. This is astonishing, this type of mind power that we've all got, particularly if we don't forget today's lesson about the sweet spot. And also, all of you who are non-members of ours, please consider being a member with us, because not only do you get these type of things that I'm doing with you today, but you get the membership people also get private things that only they can see. They listen and will have interviews with world famous people that pass on their expertise as well. You get all of the programs of MBX, and there's lots of them, and further development. We get also and lots of like-minded people you'll hear from that will be members of MBX Worldwide Network that you'll be in touch with. What an opportunity to become a member with us right now. Join us for the sweet spot. Join us up at MBX Elite Plus membership by going onto our website, www.mindbodyextra. The extra has no E.com.au. How sweet is that? Bye for now. See you next week.